On March 23rd, I think it was Saturday, I went to a local comic shop's warehouse, which is not normally open to the public. I think the last time it had been open was like in December or November, maybe, of last year. I've made a video of it before, which I'll post a link to in the description below. It's titled something like "Every comic in this place is $1," which is basically what it is. Everything in the warehouse is $1. And in that video, you'll be able to see inside and so forth. It was a little busier today than before, so I didn't take any video inside. But if you want to know what it looks like, just look at that old video. Anyways, I ended up buying 50. Well, actually, there's 52 comics here. I guess we miscounted. Either me or the person at the store miscounted. The deal is that it's $1 each for the comics, or 25 comics for $20. And if you pay with cash, there's no tax. So that's what I did. Now, so it cost me $40 to get 52 comics here. Like I said, normally 50, but when I counted them, when I got home, it was like, oh, there's 52. I'm going to just show the comics that I bought on Saturday, but there weren't really any fantastic finds, but there was some cool stuff that I'm going to go through. Things I was, glad to get. And this one in particular, I'll set this aside, was my favorite of the trip. This made it all worth it. This is actually a facsimile edition from 2021 of The Black Knight #1 from 1955, published by Atlas Comics, the precursor to Marvel. I love these facsimile editions. I think I've posted about them on YouTube before. I have a blog post actually where I keep track of all the facsimile editions that have been released since 2019 by Marvel and DC of pre-1990 comics. Maybe I'll put a link to that below too. But I update that regularly. So this is one that when it first came out in 2021, even before it came out, I had seen solicitations for it, and I thought, oh, this is going to be pretty awesome, because it's a reprint of the whole issue, including the advertisements, for $3.99, the price of a current comic. And it's on kind of glossy paper. And it's pretty awesome. Much of the artwork by Joe Maneely, it looks like. I'm not going to show the whole thing, but just to give you an idea of what it's like. So it's basically just a replica of the original issue. For $3.99, how can you go wrong for that? So I had seen the solicitation of that when it first came out, but I wasn't buying new comics back then, really. I only started like in 2022, 2023, something like that. So when this came out, I wasn't keeping track of what was coming out each week, and it just slipped by. So, I mean, you could probably still get it on eBay for about $5 or so. But for $1, I was like, awesome. And this happened to be sitting on top of one of the boxes. Epic Illustrated #7 from 1981. And it's pretty cool. Epic Illustrated was like Marvel's attempt back then to do like a heavy metal magazine type thing. The Marvel magazine of adult fantasy. Now, something like this, to me, is kind of ahead of its time, Epic Illustrated. It's like a real magazine for adults, because it's got ad for booze in the back. It's sort of like back then you had things like Omni magazine. Things that are kind of like slick science fiction type magazines. In fact, there's an ad for the heavy metal movie that came out. So it's like a real honest to God magazine, that you would buy back then in 1981. But it's published by Marvel and it's comics. And it's creator-owned comics for the most part. And then there's like movie reviews by Denny O'Neil and, other people that are involved with Marvel stuff. Now, of course, you also had people that normally would not do Marvel material. There's an interview with Barry Smith, which is kind of interesting. The funny thing for me is when I look at this, it's like, I wish Marvel was still doing something like this for all the talk of today's comics being very adult and so forth. To me, this presents more as an adult magazine. Of course, Heavy Metal magazine, I guess, is still around, which is doing this sort of thing. But the funny thing in here, it says editor and publisher Stan Lee. Well, we know publisher at least. Editorial director Archie Goodwin, consulting editor Jim Shooter, who was editor in chief of Marvel. It does kind of make me wonder about the behind the scenes thing. There's no evidence really of Stan Lee doing anything in this magazine. Archie Goodwin is writing it, and it's presented much more in an adult style. It's not like the Stan Lee, hey, true believers, it's Smilin' Stan, all that sort of thing. It's written for adults. And so you have Archie Goodwin, Denny O'Neil, and people like that writing in a more serious adult manner, not like the mighty Marvel manner of Stan Lee. But on the other hand, Stan would give lip service to wanting to do adult, reaching a more of an adult audience. So here you would think would have been his, golden opportunity to do so. I think in the first issue he had like a Silver Surfer story or something like that, but I don't know. It's sort of to me, it sort of looks like a missed opportunity for I think this ran to like about 37 issues, something like that. Ran to about 1986 till or maybe 87 at the latest, and then was canceled. But to me, this is like I said, a missed opportunity that Marvel could have done more with. This was another find. Batman and the Outsiders #1. Now, I've wanted to get this for a while because I didn't get it at the time. I think the first issue, this is from 1983, and at the time, Batman didn't have that many first issues of anything. You had Batman #1 in 1940. You had Batman Annual #1, which was like 1962 or something like that, maybe 63. And then you had Batman Family #1. That was probably like 1973, 74. And then you had some reprint series, in the early 80s. But then Batman and the Outsiders, 1983, is one of the first ongoing Batman series, other than Batman Family and, the Batman Annual, since 1940. So looking at it in retrospect, you think, this might be, and the Outsiders are still an ongoing thing. There's a current Outsiders series right now, although with different characters, not like Geoforce and Halo and Black Lightning and so forth. I was thinking, the thing is also I have every single issue of Batman and the Outsiders of the original run. It changed its name to Adventures of the Outsiders in like issue number 28 or something like that. And I think I have most of those too. But and then it became a Baxter series called The Outsiders. I have some of those. So I sort of stop at around 1986 or so. But like I said, I bought Batman and the Outsiders #4 when it first came out. And I think I bought issue number 8 when it first came out, the Christmas issue with Phantom Stranger. And the #4, I think, was the time, the new Teen Titans crossover. And I was buying Teen Titans at the same time as this. But this was probably a little too early because I didn't really start getting into DC until 85. So, although I did buy new Teen Titans, like I say. So it's too bad I didn't get this at the time. I probably would have dug it. But I'm glad I have it now. And now I can say I've finished my Batman and the Outsiders collection. This was in there. Batman, The New Adventures, well, it's just basically Batman, #410 from 1987. Now, I was buying Batman around this time, and but this issue I never bought. Now, the cool thing about this issue is that it's in awesome condition. It looks brand new. It has that sort of fresh, like fresh off the stand, usually in these cheap boxes, you're going to have some more wear and stuff, but this was a sharp looking issue. Not that it's especially valuable or anything. You can get copies on eBay that say, brand new or whatever for like less than $10, probably $5 or so. But I was happy to get that. Now, in the opposite end is this very worn issue of the Teen Titans number 36, the original Teen Titans Volume 1 series. The bad thing about this is it's a detached cover. So, but at least it has a cover. I did see some comics in the bins that didn't have covers. Now, the funny thing is about this issue is when I was looking at it, I could tell right away. I was like, that looks like a George Tuska thing, but it says art by Nick Cardy. And, all through it, as I'm looking through it, I was like, these are very George Tuska panels. What are they talking about? And when I looked it up on the Grand Comics database, it turns out that in a subsequent letter page, they say that, yes, it was George Tuska who penciled that story. There's also this Aqualad story that apparently was intended for the Aquaman series before it got canceled. And then there was Superboy reprint where he meets Robin. And then there's a Lilith story back here. The teenager from nowhere, sort of a origin of Lilith, I guess. So anyways, I thought this was pretty cool for only $1. Like I say, actually less than $1 when if you consider that it was 25 for 20. So I got 2 issues of The Flash here from the 1970s. 238 also has a Green Lantern story, I think drawn by Mike Grell inside. It's kind of cool. This one, I wasn't sure from the cover what the issue number was because you can see it's cut off, just the way it was printed. So it says 250 something. So then I had to look inside, and the lighting was so bad in the warehouse thing that I couldn't see. I was like, is that 256 or 258? I looked on my list, to make sure which ones I was missing. I ended up getting it because I was like, I think it's 256. I think I might have been out of 258 too, so it didn't matter. 319. Normally by this point, I'm not a big fan of the later Carmine Infantino drawn issues. This is from the early 80s. But it has a creeper backup drawn by Dave Gibbons in there. So, in fact, let's take a quick look at that. I don't think the art is so hot, though. Oh. Usually you would think, oh, art by Dave Gibbons, that's going to be awesome. But, I don't know. I wasn't that impressed. It looked okay. But, it was sort of his early work for DC. Yeah, see, it's just, I don't know. Doesn't seem too cool. I mean, anybody could really have done it. Oh, that's a kind of cool laid out panel. Something about the inking just kind of seems weird to me. So, anyway. And this is like one of those letter pages that Ernie Colon was doing at the time that I think actually Robin Snyder was laying out because it has a typical Robin Snyder layout, which has a dedication to a reader at the top as thought for the day, dear friends. So on little things like that, which I enjoy. All right, let's put that back. Now, here's an issue of Action Comics for 542, number 542 from the early 1980s. I had brought a cheat sheet with me of issues of Action Comics I needed from a certain period, from like 493 to like 543, 493 to 643, I think it was, something like that. I'm only missing a handful of issues, and this was one of them. I'm missing maybe a dozen issues of that. Just between that period. Justice League of America 214. Again, by this point, Justice League was kind of going downhill. Don Heck was drawing it. I usually like Don Heck, but this is sort of early 80s, and it just isn't as cool. Although some of the later issues are even worse. This still has the main guys, the main superhero characters, the world's greatest superheroes. Cool George Perez cover, though. The nice thing is this is also a Canadian variant, 75 cents. So this is the copies that would be sold in Canada. They didn't have the U.S. prices on there. All right, moving along to some Marvel here, at least one Marvel. I didn't know what this was. I have been buying the Powerline Shadowline series because it was penciled by Gray Morrow, if I remember correctly. And there were 2 other Powerline series. These are epic series from the late 1980s that ran like 8 issues each. There was Powerline, St. George, and what was the other one? Uh, Doctor something? I can't remember. But anyway, it might be on the back cover there. But so those 3 series were like sort of shared universe that weren't part of the Marvel universe. Um, they got canceled after 8 issues. I didn't know all this until looking it up after indexing this, putting this in my list of what comics I now have. I had to go look it up on the Grand Comics database. So the series got canceled, but they were already in production on some other stories for the a sort of a crossover between the 3 titles. So after 8 issues, all 3 titles got canceled in like 1988 or 89, I think it was. And then this came out in 1990. It was a 7-issue miniseries in sort of prestige format where they reprinted the stuff. And some of it has some good artists. I mean, this is early work by Jim Lee, who was drawing one of the titles. You wouldn't really know it. But yeah, that's Jim Lee artwork. And then it has some Gray Morrow in there. So when I looked at that and I was like, oh, Gray Morrow doing some Powerline, I might as well get that. So this is issue number 4. So I thought, well, if the rest show up in the cheap ends, I'll get it. The original Dick Tracy by Chester Gould, number 2. Now I have number 1. I think this series ran around 4 issues or 5 issues maybe. It was published by Gladstone, who were this is like for 1990, who were doing the Disney comics at that time. And so I had issue number 1 and thought it was super cool. And never thought I'd really see the rest in the cheap bin, but you always kind of hope to be able to see one. And so it's too bad it didn't last longer, but that's kind of cool. The original Dick Tracy, at the time of the Dick Tracy movie coming out and stuff. Mickey and Donald, number 6, also published by Gladstone. I think this is from the late 1980s, maybe mid-80s. Take a quick look inside. And it has very, old reprints of the Mickey stuff. Well, not too old, I guess, but it's also very educational about the history of it takes it all very seriously as the way it's presented and so forth. Plus presenting work that hadn't appeared in the United States before and so forth. And plus with Carl Barks material reprinted. Some really beautiful looking children's comics. And so I like the variety of a Mickey and Donald. I think this was later retitled. The series was later retitled around issue number 9 as Donald and Mickey, because Donald apparently is much more of a hot seller than Mickey is in comics for some reason. This is from Paper Cuts, the Smurfs Tales, and this was a free comic book day from I think 2021. Yep, and it was a free comic back then, but it's on slick paper, but it just reprints some of the vintage Smurfs strips. So I thought, well, that's pretty cool. I'll get that. This was another sort of oddball title. I've never owned a Barbie comic before. Barbie is really hot now, though. And Marvel published a Barbie comic from 1991 to 96. This is issue number 55. And also at the same time, they were also publishing one called Barbie Fashion or something like that. And that also ran a ton of issues. This was canceled in 96, though. But I think it's, kind of cool that they were doing something like that. We'll take a quick look inside, because how often do you see inside a Barbie comic on YouTube? Just to give you a flavor of what it's like. It's like a typical, sort of like a Katie Keene type comic. In fact, I think it's penciled by Barb Rush, who was doing Katie Keene at the or she did Vicki Valentine, I think, which was similar to Katie Keene. And we'll put this back. Also got some Archie comics. This Archie Christmas Spectacular is from 2019, I think. And I had gotten a subscription to Archie Comics. And I think one of the ones I got from when I had the subscription was a Christmas Spectacular. So it's something they do every year. And so I thought, well, I didn't get this one, so it's only $1, so I'll get it. And this is Laugh number 3. Now, 1987, Archie renumbered Laugh. They also renumbered Jughead, and they also renumbered Betty and Veronica for some reason. I don't know why. But basically, it's the same as Laugh always was, with Archie lead story and, various backups. It's Sabrina and Josie and the Pussycat stories in there. So this is Laugh number 3. The only other issue of this run I think I have is Laugh number 2. So here's 2 Charlton comics. Now, I actually already have these 2 issues, but I figured, well, these are upgrades, because when I looked at my list, if there's any notable flaws in my copies, I put a little note on it, and mine said detached cover or something like that. This one also looks a little rough, but I've had my copy since the 1980s, like 1984 or something like that, 83. And this is a cool Steve Ditko story from that time, 1970s. And written by Don Glut, incidentally. So I thought, well, I'll just get that, and that might be better. I haven't compared it to my other one. And my copy of this issue, I had a note on it saying it was like creased or something like that, creased cover. So I thought, well, I'll just get this. This is Doomsday +1 number 7. It's a reprint of a earlier in the series, which was drawn by John Byrne. If you'd like to see early John Byrne work, when he was just starting out for Charlton Comics. In fact, there's somewhere here, there's a signature. I think there we go, the next page. Here's his signature up in the corner. Pencils and Inks by John Byrne. Here's an issue of Sergeant Rock it says December 1983. I never bought Sergeant Rock back in the day for some reason. But I thought, if I had been buying, if I would have tried it, this would have been around the time to try. And it looks kind of cool. The Legend of Grimjack, Volume 1. This is an IDW trade paperback. It's really thick. And it reprints all the Star Slayer, the Grimjack backup stories that were in Star Slayer, published by First Comics in the 1980s. But they're all recolored and everything on nice paper. Plus, there's a news story in here, too. I think this is the news story by John Ostrander and Tim Truman. And then you have the Star Slayer backups there. So pretty cool, even though I think I already have all the Star Slayer stories. And I got a bunch of new comics as well. The Detective Comics Annual number 3. This is from 2020, I think. Detective Comics number 1035. Detective 1043 and 1047. These are regular $5 each, when they came out. And so it's hard to pass them out for $1. 1059. I think the first issue I bought when I started getting back into new comics was Detective 1060, right after this issue. And then DC also puts out their comics in these cardstock variants, which are $6 each, $5.99 each. And so this is 1066 and 1067 of the cardstock variants. And then we have Batman 124 and 130. Again, some recent comics, because it's currently on like 140 something. Action Comics 1050. This is from last year or so. This is regular $6.99. This is the Dan Parent cover variant. Dan Parent being the Archie comics artist. So he did a variant cover for that. Geiger number 3. I just started getting into that because of the Ghost Machine one-shot that came out earlier this year. I'd never bought Geiger or any of these comics. What are they called? The Mad Ghost comics. And this is actually a second printing, by the way. They had multiple issues of this series in the bins. There were like 2 other copies of it, but I ended up getting that one. Didn't notice it was a second printing after I took it home. Issue number 2 and 3 of Junkyard Joe. Again, they had multiple copies of that, like different variants and stuff. 2 issues of Marvel Age, number 3 and 26. Just filling holes in my collection. Marvel Age is a good source of finding out about the history of Marvel in the 1980s. Because even though you're getting a skewed Marvel version of it, you're getting you're getting the company line in a way. You do have sort of a taste of what Marvel was doing at the time, and sometimes they list things that they end up not publishing. Iron Man Bad Blood number 4. This is like from 2004 or something like that. This is by Dave Michelini and Bob Layton. It was a 4-issue miniseries. I have issue number 1 through 3, but I had never had issue number 4 before for some reason, so now I got it. Captain Marvel number 1, Dark Tempest number 1. This is a $4.99 comic that came out last year, and I passed it up, but here it is in the dollar bin. Another Captain Marvel. This is issue number 44. This is from the previous series, not the current run. Hallows Eve number 1. This is a variant cover, and the bad thing about this one, it has a piece missing out of the back. That's probably why it was in there, because you can see there's a little chunk missing out of the back cover there. But I've been wanting to get Hallows Eve and just haven't gotten around to it, and I saw it there. Avengers number 5. This was a variant cover. This is the final issue of that series, and I think I'm only missing one more issue. And all the issues of that I've gotten out of the dollar bins. Avengers Spotlight number 29. This used to be called Solo Avengers. It was a 1980s, late 80s series. I have however many, 40 issues or whatever the series ran. I haven't had all the issues except for this one. So I was very happy to finally see this issue in the dollar bins. A-Next number 11. They had a whole bunch of A-Next ones. I just grabbed one just to fill out the trying to get the 50 for $40 deal. What the number 4. This was originally the final issue of the series, but they ended up keeping it going. Clandestine number 8. This was the last issue I needed of all the Alan Davis drawn issues, because they ran a few more issues after this, but they're not by Alan Davis, so I don't need those. But those are the last of the Alan Davis ones I needed. I just grabbed this one, Phoenix Resurrection number 1 from 2018. Just grabbed it when I needed to get two more issues when the guy said it was short. And it turned out I wasn't short. Truth Red, White, and Black number 2. I have this issue already, but this looked to be in better condition than mine. Truth number 5 and 7. Just filling holes in my Captain America collection. And again, filling holes in the collection. Winter Soldier number 1. I think it's like 2019. It was a 5-issue miniseries. And Falcon and Winter Soldier number 4. This is also a miniseries from like 2021 or something like that. And I'm only missing 2 more issues to have the whole run of that. And finally finished off my Fallen Sun miniseries from like 2005 or something, The Death of Captain America, 2006 maybe. And so I find this is issue number 4. It doesn't say on the cover, but that's the issue number. So I finally finished off my Fallen Sun run. And that's it. Those are all the comics. My total cost came to $40. So like I said, not any fantastic deals, but I was happy with what I bought. Again, the Black Knight thing was the coolest thing, but there's also some, other cool stuff in here. So that's it. They said that they're going to make the warehouse open again each month. So maybe next month I'll head up there and get some more, because you could only go through a fraction of the boxes that were there. There were so many boxes that you just wouldn't be able to get through all of them in time. So anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching.